All right, we're going to get nice and controversial today with this new article from Politico titled Conservative States Are Blocking Trans Medical Care. Families are fleeing. From Texas to Florida, families with kids who are medically transitioning say state policies limiting gender-affirming care are forcing them to flee. Like this person right here. Before I get into this, I just want to preface, people have a right to disagree with gender transitioning. That doesn't make you a bad person, and I feel like that's what a lot of these mainstream journalists fail to realize, that that's a pretty reasonable position to have. It doesn't mean that they're hateful. It doesn't mean that they're going to come after and hurt anybody. Quite the opposite. It's a fleeing from this. Like, there's people trying to escape this, what they see as insanity of transitioning children from their sexual orientation they were born with. Like, just asking for some tolerance here from the mainstream media, please. No one's trying to hurt these people. At least the vast majority of people are not. Carrie Jackson and her family of 3 fondly remember their home in Denton, Texas. They had moved to the Dallas suburb from the tiny town of Malakoff, Texas back in 2016. Jackson landed a job she liked as a lead counselor for the Aubrey Independent School District. They're just saying that, their family was thriving. This is the family in question here. And it's like, nothing against you, but like, don't you realize, like, I don't care if you live near me or not. Like, and neither do the majority of Americans. Like, we don't care. Like, is this picture supposed to make me, like, feel like, oh my gosh, I want you to be my neighbor? Like, if you have these out there beliefs, go live in Los Angeles. Go live in, your thriving utopia of Los Angeles, and let me know how you like it. That's the kind of area that supports your belief systems, and just see how they're doing. Why don't you live in that sort of area? Like, this, again, this isn't hateful. No one's coming after you. It's like, just let people try to live like normal lives, please. So, okay. Coming out and socially transitioning at 14 had been rough, but by 17, Cass was a well-adjusted teen who identified as non-binary and used they/them pronouns. Cass was making great grades, working a job. She said, I hid away for a really long time, Cass recalled, but then I figured this out about myself against all odds. Again, nothing against you, but I don't care if you move away from my area. Like, why would anyone really care? Seriously. Like, the world doesn't revolve around you and your out there ideals if you compare it to the majority of the population on Earth. On the night of February 22nd, Carrie was sitting in bed scrolling through her Facebook feed and spotted a news article posted by another mother. Texas Governor Greg Abbott had issued a directive requiring the state's Department of Family and Protective Services to investigate all parents with medically transitioning kids. Good. In closing, an opinion from fellow Republican Attorney General Ken Paxton to back it up. These parents could be brought up on charges of child abuse. Good. And people who worked with trans kids could be too, if they didn't report such families to state authorities. Amazing. That's what, and it's very interesting to me because Politico wrote this article thinking that the average American reader would be like, oh my gosh, that is terrible. Like, it's simply going to be like, nice, we're making progress. Cool. We're undoing the horrible, like, degradation that's been done to this country under the guise of progress. But really, look around you. Society is crumbling. Literally, inflation, gas prices, social disorder, racial tensions have never been higher. Just compare it to the 90s. Like, what racial tensions really existed in the 90s, honestly? Just weeks later, the Jacksons were en route to Cumberland, a small city near the Allegheny Mountains in western Maryland, where Cass's older sibling lived. Blah, blah, blah. Cassie's sibling Bug is also transgender. That's suspect to me if you have, like, multiple siblings who are transgender when they account for so little of the population. That's a red flag. And would provide a new home for Cass, their mother, and their other sister, unemployed without a plan. They felt like their only option was to flee a state they had never intended to leave. They were leaving their home. All right, well, people have a right to not want this kind of thing around their kids. They just do. You can't take over the entire country Okay, like there has to be, at least give these people some pockets in the United States where their kids are not indoctrinated by this. Like, this is the mom who said in the article works at a school. These are the people teaching our kids with a support trans youth t-shirt, basically saying like, hey, I support giving hormone blockers to children. You need to understand that the vast, vast majority of Americans think that this is sick, and they do not want these people around them. Okay, for the Jacksons who let a reporter and photographer spend days with them in Maryland sharing their story of leaving Texas, the choice quickly became urgent after Abbott's announcement. Cass's mental health suffered. Kerry said the directive required professionals who work with children, teachers, school nurses, counselors, to report the parents of children like Cass to the Department of Family and Protective Services or face possible criminal charges. Yeah, if you transition your child under 18, you deserve to be investigated. Okay. Within days, Cass recalled they were bursting into Kerry's room filled with suicidal thoughts. And, it's again trying to make the reader feel bad for this family. I think I speak for the majority of people. Like, I don't care if this family lives near me. I don't care. So, yeah. The governors, legislators, and other officials who argue for curbing access to trans health care say it is dangerous and that the state should intervene to protect young people from physical and emotional harm, as well as damaging influences about gender fluidity. I believe very strongly that if the good Lord made you a boy, you are a boy, and if he made you a girl, you're a girl. Alabama's Republican Governor Kay Ivey said. Okay, yeah, that's totally fine. At least 15 other state legislators are considering proposals for similar restrictions at the federal level. Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene has introduced the Protect Children's Innocence Act, which would ban federal funding for health plans that cover gender-affirming treatment, prohibit U.S. academia from training doctors in how to provide such care, nice, and make it a felony for a doctor, good, to give such care to a minor, awesome. It has 49 co-sponsors. It has not yet been heard in the House. Yeah, like there is this, like in the Kabbalion, it talks about the law of the pendulum. Like if you swing really far one way, that pendulum is going to come back the other way. And I think we're seeing this now, where the vast majority of Americans in the United States had no problem with gay people for decades. It's like, okay, whatever. Like we enjoy our gay friends. They're really fun to be around. They're great. But the pendulum is swinging so far towards like gay, 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 Netflix, gay, 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 politics, gay, media, gay. And you see it everywhere to the point where like the average American is going like, I had no issue with you before, but now you're just annoying. Like now the average American is like, I just don't want to see you everywhere I turn. You were cool before and now you're just really aggressive and in my face. And we're seeing the pendulum swing the other way. And what these like advocates for gay rights don't realize is they're the ones creating the homophobia. Like they're the ones creating this horrible division in this country. All you had to do was just be cool and just be yourself and be in your corner. Not saying to like marginalize you, but just like don't be so up in everyone's face about it. Okay. Like it's just, this pendulum swing is going to be so harsh when these people see like what politics is about to become in the next few decades. They're not going to believe what happens. Let's see. There's nothing is more ominous than allowing politicians and attorneys to render medical judgments on our nation's children. Okay. He claimed that life-altering surgeries and extreme changes related to gender-affirming care could result in long-term harm to minors. Then the father of four insists that the state has an obligation to step in to protect them. Yep. All right. It's like going into like trying to make you feel bad about this kid. And it's like, I'm sure your life is pretty difficult. Every trans person has an extraordinarily difficult life. And life on earth is already insanely hard. So of course, like the average person their heart's going to go out to you. I mean, yeah, that's about like all I have to say about that. Despite all the trauma, the teenager can't help but miss Denton and Kerry and said she isn't used to seeing Cass in solitude. Well, tough luck, honestly. Like there's a lot of people who don't want to be around this. And I'm sorry that this made you sad. But hopefully this will be a catalyst for you to become a stronger person, and I'm sure it will. Again, 99.9% of people don't wish any ill will against people like this. They just don't. It's not about like wanting to do this person harm. It's just about not wanting to have their kids around that, and that's totally fine. It does not make them bad people. So I guess I just want to throw that out into the ether. It needs to be said more in this society where it's like actually considered hate speech, the things I'm saying. Like what I'm saying in this little video is enough to get me like kicked off of every platform and get booted out of banks, put on a no-fly list. That's where this country's headed. Like someone to have an opinion like me to be completely ostracized, even though I share the majority of people's opinion. It's wild, and we got to fight against it in our own little way. Not that we can really change the machine. The machine's just going to keep on moving and do what it does. But I think there's something to be said about certain like energy waves, and we need to push back using our inner power from God to just speak out about this. So for whatever it's worth, there you go. All right. Thank you for tuning in.